Good morning. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs for the 2025 legislative session. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Carter,
Present.
DeLong,
Present.
De Silva, Edgeworth, Flanagan, Gallant, Goulding, Gurr, Hunt, Jackson, Karras, Kasama, Wynn, Chair Considine.
I am here, and we do have a quorum. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those via video conference in Las Vegas, and anyone listening over the internet. As usual, I would like to begin with a few housekeeping measures. Please check and silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to our committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and any affiliation for the record. And if you're providing handouts, please ensure that hard copies are available for members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee manager by 9 a.m. yesterday for our committee members. We always expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we disagree with someone else's position. And I encourage committee members to ask questions, engage with the material presented, and if you have any follow-up questions, please just check in with me so we can ensure we balance our time effectively today. And committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not interpret that as a sign of disrespect or inattention. And today we will be hearing two bills. We'll begin with Senate Bill 116, which revises provisions relating to the compensation of elected county officers. And then we will hear SB 313, which revises provisions relating to state purchasing. And with that, let's get started. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 116. To present this measure, we have Senator Daly. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13, here to present Senate Bill 116. So Senate Bill 116 is an attempt to address pay issues for county elected officers in Nevada. Currently, the salary for county elected officers are set by statute and have not been adjusted since fiscal year 2018-2019. Because the annual salaries have been established by statute, which is required by the Constitution, the rates have been frozen since the last increase, 2018, essentially 7 years. So this bill will adjust the base rates to more closely reflect a market rate for these types of positions, and will for all elected positions except for county commissioners get the legislature, I hope, is my goal, out of setting the elected county officer's salary. So we're required to do it by the Constitution, but this will set a chain of events in place that will cause it so they won't have to come back to the legislature. The increases will happen a different way and be legal according to what the LCB tells me. Setting elected county salaries in Nevada and shift it to the county commissioners. The goal and reason for making these increases will have several positive effects, in my view. First, it will make it easier to attract more qualified people to run for these positions, and it will make it easier to attract qualified subordinate support staff. And I'll tell a quick story. Story County assessor, person was elected, they had the salary was set by the statute, they had a deputy assessor, made $20,000 more than the actual assessor. So when the assessor retired, they begged the deputy to run for the position, taking the cut in pay, and then it put the county in a position where they were reluctant to then hire the deputy or some help at a higher rate than what they were paying the assessor, right? So it took a long time for the deputy to get above that. So it kind of limits them on some of that. And if any of you know anything about property taxes, it's not easy. There's a lot of calculations, and you have to have qualified people that can do that work. And if you have this blocking mechanism because you're not paying a fair or market rate, you're going to have a problem attracting those people. So I'll just go ahead and start in on the bill. So subsection 1, section 1, subsection 1 defines elected officers. So basically it's all of the elected positions in a county except for the county commissioners. Section 1, subsection 2 creates a trigger for the salary to increase for the elected officers to 3% above the highest paid person that they supervise. And that's the market rate type of thing and how this increase will go. A lot of county commissioners or counties have, for instance, the DA. So the DA has the ability to hire deputy district attorneys, but the county has set a pay scale range that he can hire those people in. There are protections against a DA hiring somebody at a wildly higher rate just so he can get a raise. Anything like that would have to be approved by the county commission. So if he hires within that pay range, the county knows, and if that triggers the 3%, it's okay. If they approve a collective bargaining agreement and that causes a raise, that would trigger the 3%. The county knows about it. So some of those protections are in place, so people can't really go crazy with it. Section 2 also requires the county commission, as I was just saying, to approve any salary that would trigger the increase that gives instances that show notice approval to the county commission. Section 1, subsection 3 establishes what I am calling a reset of the base salary using the formula as stated in that section. Essentially what it is, we're going to take the 2018-19, which was the last time they got a raise, apply the CPI-U formula that for the 5-year or the 7 years that they didn't get up to 2025, and then that'll establish the base rate. And then the 3% increases, various things, will be how it's set going forward, so hopefully the legislature's out of it. There is a provision, I'll get to it in a second, that allows the county to give a 2% increase, but they have to give it across the board. And once you give it, you can't take it back. So that's the rate for the next person that's running for office. So you can't really play favorites or say, well, I'm going to give this person a bonus. You can't do that either, and that's in the bill. So once the increase goes up, either by the 3% or the 2%, that becomes the base rate for the next elected person that comes behind. So section 1, subsection 4 clarifies that the new base rate I was just saying becomes the new base rate and must not be reduced for any person elected to that position in the future. It allows the Board of County Commissioners to give at their discretion 2% increases above the reset base rate and prohibits any type of bonus or other incentives in effort to favor one elected officer over a future person elected to that position. Section 1, subsection 5 says that once the salary goes up, that becomes the new base rate for that elected position. Section 1, subsection 6 sets the annual salary for county commissioners. So now we switched away from those elected positions to the county commissioners. So Clark and Washoe County rates apply only to those two counties. The remainder of the counties were put in groups based on their region and size of the county. All county commissioners will get an increase under this provision, and the rate will increase by 3% for the next 5 years. Section 1, subsection 7 keeps in place the ability of an elected officer to forego in accepting any increase. And then section 1, subsection 8, we had quite a bit of negotiation back and forth on this, allows the county commission, if there is a fiscal shortfall, to reduce elected officers' salary, but any cuts must be across the board, and it can't be less than any other non-elected employees. So if they say, well, we're going to give our elected people a 2% raise, but we're going to give our other employees 5%, they have to take the 5% as well. It can't be a lower cut than what the classified people, if you will, are getting. Sections 2, 3, and 4 basically make conforming changes. Section 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 amend the appropriate sections of the Carson City Charter because they have a different figure. As you know, Carson City is a blended county. County Commission, City Council is the same. So all of their salaries, we had to reference their charter to say we're going to have it be set as per the other sections in the bill. Section 11 asks the Interim Committee on Government Affairs to review and make recommendations regarding whether the county commission positions in Clark and Washoe only should be full-time positions, and if yes, how will that requirement be implemented, and give a recommendation regarding county commissioners' pay going forward after the 5 years. So when they had this before, the previous way, they set it in place and they gave the increase for 5 years. We're doing the increase for the county commissioners again for 5 years. But I wanted more people than just me to look at it, which is why we're sending it to the interim committee. It's not technically a study. They are allowed to do it in the normal course of the interim committee. I'm assuming that we will get to it. But I believe if we're going to make the increases that we're talking about here for Clark and Washoe, we should really look at making that full-time work so that that's your job, and you wouldn't be able to have other employment on that. We'll figure out what the interim committee wants to do on that, and then what they want to do after the 3% for 5 years goes forward on what that county commission increases or whatever might or should look like. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We spent quite a bit of time. We worked with NACO and clerk recorders, all the different people. My understanding that all of the counties understand this and are in support. I know that there have been discussions with the governor's office. If it gets to him, he says he'll sign it. So I hope it gets to him.
Thank you for that presentation. We will now move on to committee questions. Our first question is from Assemblymember Goulding.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator. I'm looking at section 3, and it talks about sorry, maybe I don't have the right section right in front of me. Is there an additional, a 3% and an additional 2% if the person is an incumbent? I'm sorry, and I'm looking at my notes from last night, and I'm trying to find this in here. Is there an intent for there to be an additional raise if somebody has longevity of more than 4 years?
Skip Daly again for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the intent is to take it from where it is now, apply the calculation, and set a new base rate. So that's the rate for that position. The county commission, if they choose, could give the 2% increase, but they would have to give it to all of the elected positions, not just one. Could give that 2% increase. And they can do it 1 year, but not others, et cetera. Then the calculation, once you've redone the base rate, then you would look to see if there are subordinates in that office, and I understand that it might be for like the DA or the sheriff, that then you would say, we've reset the base rate, they still have people underneath them that are making more, so then that base rate would be adjusted by the 3%, and then that would be the market rate type going forward. The only raise, they get a raise after that would be if there was a subordinate that was hired and they were within the 3% it would go. The discretionary 2% is up to the county commission. So the way we have this and talking with LCB is because they can reduce it in that one section if there's not enough money. They believe that we were okay with them being able to increase it if they have the money in discretion. The longevity pay, which I think is a different portion. So the longevity pay is separate. It's a separate benefit. We didn't touch the longevity pay. So if an elected official is there and he earns the longevity pay, that's earned by that person based on the time they were in office. That is not part of the base rate. So when the next person comes and gets elected, they'll get the base rate. If there was a 3% trigger, they'll get it at that new rate. If there was a 2% increase the county commission gave, they would get that as the base rate. But they haven't earned the longevity that the other person was getting, so they would have to start their own longevity. So that's, if that helps you.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to clarify. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Carter.
Good morning. My question has to do with emails that I think that all of us have been getting flooded with that are citing some concerns about fiscal responsibility in these crunching times, and of seeing to where there's going to be, it appears, going to have to be retraction in workforces within the counties and stuff, and that this is spending money that we may not have. But in addition, and I think I see the answer to that, but we're getting quotes of like, you know, that County commissioners, specifically, it says Washoe County, would bump up to over $300,000 a year based on the fact that the county manager makes that, and they're technically the supervisor of the county manager. So can you, first off, I guess the first part is addressing the fiscal responsibility of doing this now when we're seeing such a huge budget crunch, and then the specific about county commissioners.
Skip Daly again for the record. Thank you, Assembly Member. Let me answer the second one first. I saw some of the emails, and I will try to be polite as I can. The county commissioners are in a different section. The 3% increase only applies to sheriff, DA, recorder, all of that stuff. County commissioners, we're just setting it, and then they're going to get a 5% increase. So the fact that their highest paid subordinate is county manager, none of that 3% portion applies. So that's a misreading of the bill, right? So we're setting the county commissioners, and then we're going to look and see what we would do with county commissioners going forward. I don't think we want to make county commissioners in any county in the state what county managers are making, right? So that's not the intent. So that's just a misreading and understanding of the bill. I would answer the second, or the first part of your question second, on the when is the right time, can they do this? I'm told that all of the counties understand this. All of the counties know what it's going to do to their budget. They've anticipated and are in support. And I would remind back, and some of you may remember Carol Villardo with the Nevada Taxpayers Association. She used to come to me with if there was a tax increase or anything similar to this. She says, oh, well, this just isn't the right time. And I would say, really? I says, I got my phone right here. I says, I got the calendar here for like the next 500 years. I says, you tell me the good day, and that's the day we'll do it, right? These people haven't had a raise in 7 years. Tell me the good time. There is no good time. So I think it needs to be done. We're in a good position here with the bill. And then they'd say, well, this isn't the right, she would always come back and say, well, this isn't the right tax, so this isn't the right way to do it. And I said, really? I says, I got a whole list of options that we have. You tell me the good one that's on here. I says, nobody's ever going to say that this is the good tax. So you can have those arguments. I understand them. The counties are in favor in this. And the bottom line is, if we're going to attract and retain qualified, good people, and I'm not saying anything about people that are in legislature, that whole thing is a different deal, and we don't want to go there. But these county folks, they're doing a different type of a job, and I do believe we need to try to get more to market rate. And we can always make the argument, well, this isn't the time, but no one's going to tell me the good time. So I'm saying now is the good time.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair and Senator. I'm looking at it just for a clarification. I'm under Section 1.6, which is the, if I'm reading this correctly, the County Commissioners section where it's set by county. And I'm looking at the section below subsection F, where it has the annual salaries set forth in this section for fiscal year 25-26 are effective for the fiscal year for the following 5 years. Each county commissioner is entitled to a 3% increase per fiscal year. And then it says for each fiscal year thereafter, so this would be the 6th year on, each county commissioner is entitled to the salary that was in effect for that county commissioner during fiscal year 2030-31. So is that saying that from that point on, 30-31, there is no increases, there is no 3% increases, or is the expectation that it will come back to the legislature to determine increases at that time?
Thank you, Skip Daly, again for the record. Correct. We're doing it for 5 years, similar to the lined out provisions before where they had a 5% increase, actually, I think, for 5 years. And then when it got to that last year, it was frozen, and it's been frozen now for 7 years. So this is set up so we would have time as the legislature go to the interim, make recommendations, pass a bill if we were going to do something. But if nothing happened, the legislature didn't do anything, It would get up to the 2031. It would be frozen again like it was before, and it would take additional legislative action to change the rate.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for being here. My question is kind of like similar to one of my colleagues, but it's more related to the elected officers. So treasurers, clerks, assessors, recorders, who do have people who work under them and they do their annual reviews and set their salaries. So maybe assistant recorders or clerks or treasurers or whatever their titles may be, and how they have the discretion of the 3% or whatever the highest salary is of someone that they supervise, and how that space could get murky, and maybe why there aren't more defined guardrails there, because that employee could make a significant amount of money, and then that elected officer could choose to be over that highest salary of that person they supervise.
Thank you again, Skip Taylor, for the record. So when we first started on this and looking at what I got calls back from several different counties and said, hey, this is the deal, and if you do this 3% over, I believe I heard during the interim and the legislative operations elections interim committee, the Carson City clerk came in, who has 3 jobs. So he's the clerk, the recorder, and he also has to run the elections, et cetera. And he has several people on his staff in Carson City that make significantly more than he does. So it's kind of you're hiring the guy who's running for office, who's actually in charge and responsible for everything, making less than the people that are underneath him. So in that person's case, if we didn't do the reset, he would have gone to 3% above people that were already on his staff. I heard from County Commissioner in Lincoln County who said, hey, our elected people are already 3% above their subordinate staff. They were interpreting it as that they would have to take a cut to go down to 3%, no more than 3% above their highest staff. And I said, no, that's not the intent. So when we started looking at it and analyzing it, they hadn't had a raise in 7 years. That's why we wanted to do the reset with the calculation. My understanding, talking with NACO and some of the people, there's only a few positions where they will have people after the reset below them. Like I said, I think DAs and sheriffs are probably the only ones. And then we're out of it, I hope. So the process that would be set in place, and there are guardrails. I had the same thing. I said, look, we're not going to let people play favorites and try to give a bonus to this person, just a one-time bonus, so they're someone they like, will run again or stay. I says, once you increase that base pay, that's the base pay for anybody else that's running. And then the guardrails on that is most of them have a pay range that's already been approved by the county on what they can hire people at. Because you're right, I don't want somebody to say, hey, I'm going to hire someone at $50,000 higher than the next guy, so then I'm going to get to $50,000 plus 3%. The only way that would be able to happen is if the county commission approved it. So they're the ones ultimately responsible for the budget and the pay and various things. They would have to approve that hire at that rate, knowing that it triggers the 3% as well, knowing that that's now the base rate, which can't go back down, and will be the rate going forward at the next election. So there are some safeguards in there. So I got to hope that the county commissioners are going to be responsible in that fashion. And they do have the pay ranges that they regularly review if there was a collective bargaining agreement, as we said, or they would have to put it specifically on the agenda to say, hey, I want to hire this guy outside the pay range. They would have to notify the county commission that it would trigger the 3% and it would have to be approved. So I was thinking ahead of those things too, because, I understand and appreciate human nature, which is consistent and predictable.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Karras.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator. I'd like to revisit I'm all for a supervisor making more than the people under him. That seems logical and fair. I am concerned, or maybe I need to understand why there is someone, a commissioner, who is over someone like a county manager that makes so much more than them. What's the thinking on that? Why is someone who makes so much less supervising someone who makes 3-4 times what they do?
Skip Daly again for the record. Thank you for the question. So your county managers are in a way different position. The elected official hire them for their expertise, rely on them to do a great number of things. They have people that they appoint below that. I would be opposed to trying to pay county commissioners county managers' rates, right? Some of them are making $300, $500, depending on what it is. So I see them as a different group than the DA over his deputy DA or the clerk over their deputy clerk. It's different. They're the supervisor. They're elected to that position. They have the responsibility. Yes, the county commission interacts with them, but they're the elected position and have to follow the laws for their elected position. So I'm saying they should be, like you said. County commissioner is a whole different category of employee by the county. I do think that we are underpaying them. I wouldn't be here with the bill if we weren't. And I think we want to move them to a better wage, and that's why I wanted to talk about the part on should it be a full-time position for the two larger counties. We're not paying the small county people enough to have it be their full-time position. Don't even go there. But I look at it like this when we talk about this. I remember a few years back, if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story. Maybe put it in perspective, right? When you're looking at county managers and where you have to go to compete to get that qualified person. I had people say, well, how come a school district superintendent is worth $400,000? And I said, well, I says, it depends on what you want and what you're going to pay for, right? So I remember back when the University of Nevada was finished the season, ranked 11th in the nation, and they had a chart of all the top 25 teams and what their head coaches got paid. And Chris Holt was the head coach at the time. I think he was making $500,000 at the university. Lowest paid on that list of top 25 coaches by like $3 million. I mean, Saban was at the top at $8 million. And I said, so if you want to hire, Nevada, a top 25 coach, this is the market. We're getting a bargain with where our guy's at. Same thing with the superintendent or a city manager, county manager. If you want that qualified person with that experience, you're competing against all of the other, biggest 200 cities in the country or counties in the country for that top person. So the question is, do you want a top 25 county manager? Those are the rates you got to pay, and it's different for the county managers on that. So county managers should not be making county commissioners should not be making what county managers make. It's a whole different ballgame and a whole different group of people you're trying to select from. And you're competing with all the other counties in the country. I hope that answers your question.
Chair, may I follow up? Yes, and I got that part of it, that city manager job is completely different, and we do want the best. Do we have anything in place where the county commissioner isn't at some point going to say, well, look at this law, I'm supposed to make 3% more than them?
No. They can try to interpret that way, the way the email came across, and that was a misreading. The law is still going to be the law. They're not going to be able to do that. Legislature sets it. Constitution requires us to. For the county commissioners, we need to review that on what we're going to do going forward. But what's in place right here, if this passes, is going to be the 3% increase for 5 years. It's a cliff right there, 2031, unless additional action is taken. Or if this doesn't pass, they can't make any claims to say, hey, I should have got the 5%, or they'll be stuck at the cliff they're at now, which I think would be an injustice. I hope that answers.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Committee, are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. If you'd like to take another seat, we will move on to testimony. Testimony, as always, can be provided here in Carson City in person via video conference in Las Vegas or over the phone. And further instructions for providing that testimony is available on the agenda. We will begin to hear testimony in support of Senate Bill 116 here in Carson City in person. And please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthreau. It's Vinson. Last name is Guthreau. It's Gutreau. I serve as the Executive Director of the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO, where all 17 counties are members of our association. So we are in full support of this bill. We have been working with Senator Daley now. It seems like a lifetime, but I think it's been about 18 months. We started in the interim. We appreciate him bringing this forward, and the reason why our board supports this measure is that we believe it is a fair approach, and that for some of the questions that have been out there about fiscal responsibility, we believe that there are additional guardrails in here for counties to not only bring equity of pay to county elected offices, but to allow for the Board of County Commissioners to adjust and respond to fiscal emergencies. We believe the fiscal language here is strengthened. I know there's been a ton of questions, and I'm happy to help clear some of those up. One of the questions that came up was around department heads giving reviews. I just want to mention for this committee that the local elected official department heads don't set the salary. They might review performance, but they don't set the salary. So again, to the sponsor's point, the Board of County Commissioners would be aware of that. Also, just a little clarification about the duties of the county manager and how they are not tied to the county commissions in this sense. I think I would have had a hard time getting my board to support a measure that brought county managers into this. They are the chief executive officer of the county. So for instance, in Clark County, they manage 43 departments. That is a certain level of expertise that I think that warrants chief executive level pay, frankly, but it is not tied to the county commissioners' pay in this legislation. I think you'll hear from some of the other individual electeds. I know, like I said, there's been a few questions. I know this is a little bit out of turn, Madam Chair, but I offer I can stand for questions for the committee if there are additional, since we represent county commissioners at NACO. If not, I just say support SB 116. Thank you.
Thank you. And since you offered that question, this is just something that I'm thinking of. We have representatives for these counties who have voted against this bill, and how do we interpret when legislative representatives have voted against this bill who represent the county, and where the counties stand, if that's even possible to sort of answer that question? I know it's kind of complicated, but it's something that I think some of us are considering.
For the record, my name is Vincent Guthreau with NACO. I guess I would need some clarity on what they voted against. I have some counties who have supported this, even some of our smallest rural counties, but I guess what I'm curious is which bill they voted against. Sorry, just for clarity so I can answer.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just talking so this bill came from the Senate, and there were people who voted against this bill on the Senate who represent these counties. That's my question. How do we interpret that as a legislative body?
So again, Vincent Guthreau for the record. It's as close to unanimous as we could get it in the Senate. It was 19-2. My understanding is it wasn't a county representation. That's I think a personal belief. We did work with them on this bill. We talked to them and talked about the need again, of SB 116. Like I said, I mean, to only have 2 no votes on the Senate on a hard vote, I think for us actually came out as a win. I can't justify. I can't speak for them on what their votes were, but I know we worked hard on the Senate side to get a good bill over a year.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer. And please go ahead with continued support.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Matt Griffin, Griffin, with the Griffin Company. I'm here today in support of this bill on behalf of Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, Nevada District Attorneys Association, CFOA, the County Fiscal Officers Association, the Nevada Assessors Association. I would start my testimony with saying that I think the questions presented at the hearing, I think, were very good. They're questions that we have thought about as we've gone through the bill and how Senator Daley has drafted the bill. I want to start with the outset with, I think, a couple things. Number one, Article 4, Section 32 of the Nevada Constitution requires this hearing to be held. The legislature has the authority to consolidate, abolish, create local offices, set their duties, and what we're here for today is set their pay. And I think, unfortunately, why we're here today, and to answer the timing question, is these folks at the local level have not received cost of living. This is not a pay increase. This is just them getting the cost of living increase that they've been denied for almost 7 years now. And as we all know, everything about living every day-to-day life is getting more and more expensive, yet their pay has been stagnant for almost 7 years. The employees in those counties, all of their pays have been adjusted for cost of living. The elected officials have not. And I think there's a couple purposes that serve. One, it's just parity. It's just fairness. And secondly, it's the ability to create a pay structure for these local offices that we will recruit qualified, good candidates to run for. And I think that goes to the question of the 3% increase. That 3% increase, I can tell you, is not going to apply to a lot of different, it's not widely applicable to a lot of the elected offices at the local level. To my knowledge, mostly you're talking about the sheriffs. There's, in a large county, right now as we sit, I think this is a very unfortunate statistic, that by the end of this year, in Washoe County, for example, there's going to be greater than 35% of the employees of the elected DA will make more than that DA, creating a massive disincentive for those folks that understand the community, understand police in the community, understand how to prosecute crimes in the community. Those folks are disincentivized to run when that DA decides that he or she does not want to run again. It's also applicable, I think, to the assessors, particularly the assessors in the large counties. It is a complicated undertaking to assess massive casinos at the county level. That takes a very specific skill set, which requires a specific amount of education and training, which requires an adjustment in the salary. So in the Assessors Association, there are a couple counties where there are folks that work underneath the elected official that make more than the elected official. That's the point of the 3%, is to incentivize those folks that have the experience in those counties to run for elected office should that elected official decide not to run again or they're termed out, whatever the case may be. The other part is just the COLA increase. I would also say that the intention of the bill was to address a lot of the questions that were asked. The best way that I know of that the legislature can do this, which is to say, you give predictability to county fiscal offices and to county commissions under this bill. They know what to account for in building their budgets. The county commission going forward has sole discretion for 5 years to add 2%. They can work with the county commission to make some predictability. I think importantly under this, and it goes to the question, Assemblymember Carter, to your question earlier, is as Nevada law exists right now, in the case of a fiscal problem, the county commission is not allowed to reduce a local elected salary anything below the year prior. That's how the law exists now. And I think in acknowledgement, Assemblymember, of your comment, we are changing that section in here so that county elected officials can take the same pay cut as the county employees. So we're trying to create the parity between the electeds and the employees. And so for that, I appreciate the time of everyone today, and I just want to clear up some of those questions. If you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, thank you for considering this bill.
Thank you. I'm sorry, did any committee members have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to mention, we respectfully request that any testimony be held within 2 minutes. I will now move down to Las Vegas. Seeing no one in Las Vegas to offer support testimony on SB 116, AVH will go to the phones. Is there anyone on the line in support of SB 116?
Testify in support of Senate Bill 116, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in support.
Thank you. We will then move on to opposition testimony. If there's anyone here in Carson City wishing to provide opposition testimony to SB 116, please go ahead when you are ready.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Joshua Skaggs, and I'm the Legislative Affairs Director for the Nevada Republican Party, here today in opposition to SB 116 on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party. Our platform states we support lower taxes and fees and a reduction in the scope of government at all levels. SB 116 could only be considered for government employees. No private business would ever consider paying employees based on what another employee in the organization earns. In the private sector, where money to pay employees must be earned, employees are paid based on the value that their position brings to the organization. SB 116 is an unfunded mandate by the state that requires ever-increasing pay that increases based not on merit or the value of the job, but rather based only what other employees earn and the passage of time. A look at election results for the past 2 cycles show that at least one candidate ran for every available local elected office, and that about 2/3 of the time there was a contested election for the seat. In most of the remaining cases, the unopposed candidate was an incumbent running to retain their seat. Candidates are generally aware of the fact that the position they voluntarily chose to run for paid less than what some department employees earned. But in addition to monetary compensation, elected officials enjoy other benefits and prestige. The fact that we have no shortage of candidates willing to run for these offices indicates that compensation is not an issue. Census data and NPRI reporting show that government employees' pay, when adjusted for education and experience, is comparable to the private sector. However, benefits are much richer than in the private sector, making government employees' total compensation much higher. We don't believe that this is a good time to ask private sector employees and workers to pay for a further widening of the gap between private and public employees. We oppose unfunded mandates on counties, and we believe that pay should reflect job duties rather than being set at a random amount based on other employees' pay. And for these reasons, we ask you to vote no on SB 116. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. Everyone wants a salary increase. I think all of you ought to have a salary increase, and I've said so for years. I am happy about the amended portion of the bill that says that it allows county commissions not to pay salary increases if financial resources are not available. I think this wasn't in the original bill, and I'm glad it's in the amendment. It also allows them to reduce pay if they need to. As has been said, it's a bad time to be increasing government salaries when people are struggling to put food on the table. The Economic Forum made it very clear that Nevada has economic problems. For instance, we have lower projections in state sales tax, in the modified business tax, which is based on lower than expected job growth, in the treasurer's office, in the state commerce tax. Was also going to be less. So we know that Nevada is facing some economic hard times. The Washoe County manager, as an example, makes twice what the governor makes. The governor makes $163,000, while the Washoe County manager makes $331,000. I think we need to put these things into perspective. I understand from this bill that the county commission salaries are set by the bill and that that's what they will be. And I appreciate that fact. I think we need to look at the economic conditions in America and in the Nevada in particular. The median salary for a full-time worker in the state of Nevada is only $53,000. Now, that means that many people are making less. And so this is this makes it hard for them to understand why we would be increasing government salaries, even if they haven't been increased in a while. I understand that some of the situations are probably very reasonable, but it doesn't look good when we are raising salaries for government employees when the people are struggling to put food on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else coming up to the table here in Carson City to provide opposition testimony to SB 116, and still seeing no one in Las Vegas, AVH, we will go to you for opposition testimony to SB 116.
To testify in opposition of Senate Bill 116, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Perrine, CYNTHIA PERINE. I would like to echo the thoughts of the previous two speakers and oppose this bill. I think perhaps another way to calculate the salary increases for elected county officials would be more in order. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of this committee. I'm Kimberly Fergus, FERGUS. I rise in strong opposition of SB 116. This bill hands far too much control to the county commissioners and other elected officials to influence and indirectly inflate their own salaries. By tying their compensation to the highest paid employee they supervise and then allowing an automatic 3% increase above the amount it creates is a built-in incentive to game the system. A commissioner can approve generous raises for key staff and then benefit personally without any public input or performance review. That's not fiscal responsibility. That's self-dealing by formula. This legislation also proposes a one-size-fits-all for every Nevada county, regardless of size, budget, or population. The needs and physical realities of Esmeralda County are not the same as Clark or Washoe, but under SB 116, they're treated the same, destabilizing local budget planning and leaving taxpayers with unpredictable rising costs. This is not how we should govern. Raises for elected officials should be set through a transparent public process, not automatic formulas. Based on internal staff pay, SB 116 creates confusion, removes accountability, and opens the door to abuse. I urge you to vote no. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Chapman, LYNNCHAPMAN, and I'm the state treasurer of the Independent American Party. Author Michael Burns wrote an article in July of 2024. Bureau of Labor Statistics released a report on state and local government worker pay. It showed that public worker pay is nearly 40% higher than private sector workers. The Bureau of Labor Stats data reports that government workers make 23.2% more in wages or salaries than their counterparts in the private sector. Compensation is more than just wages and salaries. It's also comprised of benefit costs. Benefit costs, which is group insurance, pensions, and fringe benefits, is 79% higher than that of private industry workers. Government worker pay is covered by our tax dollars, not how successful a business the government may be. One force that pushes government worker pay higher is the fact that government budgets are set by politicians. We really need to look at the opinions poll on this bill. There's 77% of the people are opposed to this bill. It's an unfunded mandate, so where would the money come to pay for the higher salaries? Taxes, higher taxes. So do seniors and disabled people on fixed income get at least a 3% raise every year? No. What about families that are making between $30,000 and $70,000 a year when they have to pay for housing, clothing, food, cars, gas, and everything else? They are expected to pay higher salaries of the people making twice as much as they do. This is a bad idea for taxpayers. Please vote no on SB 116. Thank you.
Good morning, committee. This is Bruce Parks, BRUCEPARKS. I am chairman of the Washoe County Republican Party, and we are strongly opposed to this bill. This would incentivize corruption. If you don't understand how that could possibly be, whenever you make public service more lucrative than private industry, you set up a situation for corruption. Additionally, here in Washoe County, we're looking at a $27 million budget shortfall for 2026. Increasing our county commissioner salaries by a very significant percentage is not going to help with that situation, even though the amendment allows the county commissioners to vote to not raise their salaries. Human beings being what they are, I don't even have to look in my crystal ball to predict what the outcome is going to be. I know that our founding fathers had absolutely no vision of people serving their country, their community, for exorbitant salaries. In fact, they largely absorbed the costs themselves. Perhaps it would be time that we go back to that. And it may sound harsh, but frankly, some of our elected officials, if they were paid what they are worth based on their performance, we'd be getting their services for free. Thank you so much.
Yolanda Canuck. I'm representing myself, Yolanda, last name Knaak, Chair and Committee. Thank you for letting us give public comment, and I agree with all the previous public comments in opposition. Thank you.
Chair, we have no additional callers in opposition.
Thank you. We will then move on to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral on Senate Bill 116? Seeing no one approach, still seeing no one in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line in the neutral position for Senate Bill 116?
Chair, the public line is open and working. We have no callers for neutral.
Thank you. Would the presenter like to make any final remarks? Please go ahead when you're ready.
Skip Daly again for the record. Thank you. Just briefly on a couple of the things that were brought up. I learned a long time ago that you can't make everybody happy. Some people you can never make happy, so we'll just leave that at that. But when we set the county commission pay, especially for Clark and Washoe, and then we looked at where we were at for the rural counties as well, I asked some of our staff for statistics on what management level people were paid in those urban areas and various things. We didn't go all the way up to the highest level, but we didn't take the lowest level either. So that is based on a market analysis to the best that I could do. It's not exactly scientific, but it is based off what private sector for management level people are making. And it was actually a little bit higher what management level people made in Washoe County than Clark. I was surprised by that, but nevertheless. And then as far as, the vote in the Senate, Senators Titus and Senators Buck, I have no idea what their personal thought process was, but we did have 6 Republicans vote yes on the bill. So I think we came to a pretty good place as far as that goes. So I will leave it there. Now is the time to do this. These people haven't had a raise in 7 years. And the market is going to drive this. And if you just want to know what the market rate is, what are we hiring these subordinate people for? And if they're not going to take a salary that's less than the elected official, we're not paying our people the market rate. That's all we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will now close the hearing on SB 116, and we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 313, which revises provisions relating to state purchasing. Thank you, Senator Daley, for staying with us to present your next bill, and please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13, here to present Senate Bill 313. So I'll go over this as quickly as I can. So the genesis for Senate Bill 313 came from an audit presented to the Audit Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission, where there was what was called by the legislative auditors questionable use of sole source waiver procedures. So the audit report, at least in one example, that a contract went from its original scope and amount of around $16,000, and then over a period, without going back out to bid, of about, I think it was 8 years, went to $1.2 million. Now, we got some explanation on how and why that happened when I spoke with some people, but we want to make sure that we're going to competitive bidding as often as we can. And I think most people in the room are understanding why we have competitive bidding in an advertising process, because we're spending public money and we want to make sure that we're getting a fair price for the services we get. So when I first submitted the bill for drafting, I had some ideas on direction to head out, but not much information regarding some circumstances that resulted in the audit report we received. So I was able to reach out to the Purchasing Division Administrator. So my goal with the bill is to tighten up the use of non-competitive contracts and to strengthen the policies on competitively bid contracts, but allow for an appropriate amount of flexibility for different types and lengths of contract for services. In other words, the one-size-all approach will not be in the best interest of the state. Accordingly, to help with the help of the Purchasing Administrator, we have SB 313. So I'll walk through the provisions in the bill, and I will do my best to answer any questions that I have. The Administrator for the Purchasing Division that I was working with is no longer employed by the state. I hope I didn't get him fired, but nevertheless. He did give me some useful information. I learned a lot of stuff, and I think I can answer most of the questions. So Section 1, Subsection 1 requires a using agency, and these are the terms that the state uses, to submit a report to justify entering into a contract without competition. Section 1, Subsection 1C, we are adding a requirement for the department to post a notice if non-competitive contract is awarded. In subsection 2, 3, and 4 provide for a two-step process that starts with an informal objection process resulting in a letter of determination to either withdraw the non-competitive award or proceed with the award and provide a justification for the award. And then the second step would be the formal appeal procedure in NRS 338.370. So what I was told is that if they go through, do the analysis, and they're going to be able to do a non-competitively bid contract, that it is gets awarded, then awarded the deal. So not until it's approved by the Board of Examiners, I understand, is it actually the way I understand award when we do that, but it's recommended. So there's no provision where that contract is noticed out to the public. So what this will do is that when that contract is out, before it's approved in the final step, they got to put it out so people that get into the state's website and look at these types of purchasing opportunities would then be able to say, hey, this was a non-competitively bid award. I could do that work, and they could object, say, and they'd have to put the language in the bill that we can perform the work, et cetera. And then the state purchasing administration can look at that and either say, hey, look, yeah, you're right. We can put this out to bid and we'll withdraw the award. Or we'll say, nah, at this point we need to go forward with the award and then give the determination. And then they can do the formal appeal if they would like after that. And sometimes the justification is there, sometimes it isn't. But at least then the purchasing administration would have that person's name and hopefully advertise or give them notice of future opportunities. Before, my understanding, there's no notice about non-competitively bid contracts. So that's just additional steps. Section 1, subsection 5 requires the administration to annually provide the reports generated by subsection 1 to the Interim Finance Committee, the Legislative Audit Division, and the Audit Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission in even-numbered years. Many of you know I'm not a big fan of extra reports and various things, but in this particular case, I think as this comes forward with this new process, I think the IFC, I think the State Audit Committee and the Audit Committee of the Legislative Commission should see how many of these reports are going out that justifying these sole source or asking for sole source waivers or non-competitively bid contracts. I think we have to identify the problem and have some information to begin with. Section 2, subsection 1 adds services to the section. So by adding services, which computers, a bunch of different things, not just the provisions for easy things like janitorial or those types of things, you have a lot of people bidding that stuff. They usually go with a 4-year contract. But if you're doing a service or you're buying a new computer system, a lot of times it's a long run-in. There's a software installation period, so a 4-year contract really isn't going to work. So in talking with that, we said, look, since we added services, we said you can do a longer contract, but it can't be longer than 10 years. Additionally, with that, what I was told when I learned a lot of information from the gentleman we worked with is that a lot of times in those proposals, they can put in, we can do a renewal within the original solicitation. So we're going to have a 4-year contract, but we can do a 2-year renewal, or we can do a 4-year renewal. So we're saying that they can do a renewal up to the same length of time, but they don't have to. So I struggled with the language, but after several discussions with the addition of the language to adopt regulations under Section 6, I think this bill will get the tightening we need without completely eliminating the flexibility that is sometimes warranted. Section 2, subsection 3 puts some process around requests for contract extensions beyond the originally intended period of performance and requires the administrator to direct the using agency to solicit and advertise for a new contract. So what I was told in some instances, some agencies, whether they do it on purpose or not, we don't want to quite go there yet. They'll say, hey, we're going to go out to bid for this service for whatever it might be. And then they know that it's only a 4-year time limit, but they don't put the RFP out in time. They don't do all the processes and stuff they would need to do. So then they're coming back to the administrator to say, hey, I need an extension on this contract. And I was told that this has happened multiple times. So I need an extension. It's not going out to bid. Price may go up, as that first example. Scope may change here and there. But the example that was given to me is, for instance, you have a service provider who does provides food services for correctional division. And they're coming and saying, hey, if you don't approve my extension, the inmates are not going to get fed food tomorrow, and you can explain the lawsuit to whoever you want, right? So they say, in that circumstance, it is in the best interest of the state to extend, even though they don't want to and they think it should go back out. Whether that was done on purpose or not, I don't know. So this process that we're trying to put into place then would, if they do the extension, requires the administrator to send with that letter and approval of the extension. You have to go out to bid before the end of this contract. And if they don't do it and don't do it again, they can be extended again. We still have to feed the prisoners, right? And that's just the example that I was given. But then they would get that report and have to appear before the Legislative Commission to explain why they're not putting this stuff out to bid. My understanding, some of this stuff starts at the budget process. It's going to be a legislative fix unless they can get the right administrator and get some of these rules put in place. It's going to take a legislative fix, so I wanted to get it in front of legislators. Section 2, subsection 5 would require the using agency that fails to solicit and advertise for a new contract to appear before the Legislative Commission to explain why new competitively bid contracts were not awarded. So basically, we're going to send them to the principal's office, and we'll make them come and tell us. From my discussions with the administrator, this type of ongoing problem will have to be fixed in the legislature, so I wanted to get it there in front of legislators, as I said. As I mentioned previously, Section 2, subsection 6 requires the administrator to adopt regulations to address the policy for the term solicitation and award contracts, policy for extension of contracts, and policy to ensure contract extensions, sole source contracts are not used to avoid competitive bidding. LCB made me adjust the words a little bit. We couldn't put policy in there, but we got it the best that we can on the regulations to try to address those types of issues. Also, what I was told when I was working on drafting this language is that some of these procedures are what's in a state administrative manual. They call it a SAM, but that can be changed administration to administration on what's in the administrative manual. I said, so we want to try to get some of those procedures, if you say that they're good, into a regulation, perhaps into statute if we need to. But I wanted to, I think, touch the tip of the iceberg. I understand some of the purchasing stuff. I'm not deep into the nuance of that, so I'm thankful for the administrator helping me on this and explaining. But I do want to not have an audit come back from our legislative audit division saying that anybody in the state is using questionable practices for sole source waivers to extend contracts indefinitely without competitive bidding. There are circumstances, especially when you're talking about computers and software and things that take a long run out, but it should not be in any way, shape, or form the norm. With that, happy to answer any questions. I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We do have a couple of questions, and we will begin with Assembly Member Goulding.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator. I'm concerned about the 10-year length that you mentioned that you also had some discomfort with, and I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. 10 years seems like a really long time to be locked into a contract.
Skip Daly again for the record, thank you. And you're right, I did struggle with that, but when we added in the section there where we added services, typically that's where the computer type software, and that's just the example. There are other things that have a much longer run out when you're doing some things. For instance, if workman's comp is, going to put in a new software system, it can't be done in the 4-year period. So we said, look, I understand if we're going to go to 10. What I was told, got me a little bit more comfortable, is in the state administrative manual, the normal standard term for landscaping, those types of things, is 4 years. So that's still in the state administrative manual, normal contracts that are going to be 4. This just allowed that flexibility, and I did have to come to understanding with that, but I was talking with the administrator, it was very helpful. I think I understood and said, we can go with the flexibility, but 10 years, from what I'm told, is not the standard in the administrative manual, and it will only be used in the appropriate type of contracts, because I was concerned with the 10 years as well. I don't know if that gets you comfortable, but that was part of what I had to deal with when I was looking at the draft on this.
Thank you. Maybe we can talk about it offline. So.
Okay.
Thank you. And I do have a question in that same area, so I'm going to ask that now. On Section 2, subsection 2, so right below that, it does say the original terms of the contract may be extended if the conditions for an extension are specified in the original solicitation, and that can also be up to 10 years. So in a contract, it can say as long as the situation remains the same, like whatever they put in that original contract, they can go up to 10 years and sort of have an automatic re-up of the contract if it's written in such a way in that contract. Am I understanding that correctly?
Skip Daly again for the record. So yes, if they put the solicitation out, up to the 10 years if you want, they could have a renewal. It could be anywhere from 2 up to the 10. Again, going back to the state administrative manual, which is the policy that's set internally, it's not in regulation or in statute, 4 years is the standard contract. In certain circumstances, And this is where I had to get comfortable with it too. I believe the person that I was working with. Sometimes it needs to be done. My understanding as well, I don't have to phone a friend here to ask, is that they do have to go back and get the approval for the extension, even if it was in, and I believe that's the case, but I may have to follow up on that.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you, Chair and Senator, again. My question has to do with, one, it sounds like our state audits are doing a good job with making, the committee aware of issues that have come up and things to look at, which is why you're bringing this legislation. I'm just curious, and I know you don't have the full detail, but in general, the areas of concern that came up, was that the Department of Corrections and then also technological services?
Skip Daly again for the record. It was not Department of Corrections, but it was on technological stuff where they were moving, they not only extended it without going back to bid, they changed the scope and increased the cost, obviously, from going from 16,000 to 1.2 million. Now, our auditors, they do their job. They look at this. They see things black and white. Speaking with the administrator and some of that stuff, he said, yeah, no, the questionable use of the sole source waiver, they're supposed to go back every single time and get a new waiver to not have to go out to bid to extend this contract. And some of the paperwork and not all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. That was the questionable use of the extensions. And I said, to the extent we can, let's try to at least get other people knowing if there's this no bid contract, have an objection appeal process, try to get some regulation rather than just the state manual, regulation around what the procedure would be, because that would have more force. So baby steps is kind of where I'm at. But it was not Department of Corrections in the audit, but it was, and I don't remember what agency it was, but it was over tech services.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Committee members, are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation. We will move on to testimony on Senate Bill 313. And we will, as usual, testimony can be provided here in Carson City, in Las Vegas via video conference, or on the phone, and instructions can be found on the agenda. We will begin with testimony in support, and we will begin here in Carson City. Seeing no one approach the table here in Carson City for testimony in support of Senate Bill 313, we will move to Las Vegas, and seeing no one in Las Vegas, we will move to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the phone line wishing to testify in support of SB 313?
Thank you. The line is open and working. We have no callers for support of SB 313.
Thank you. We will then move to testimony in opposition to SB 313. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to the bill? Seeing no one approach the table here in Carson City, no one in Las Vegas, AVH, we're back to you if there's anyone on the lines wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 313.
Thank you. The public line is open and working. We have no callers in opposition.
Then we will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral on SB 313? Seeing no one approach, still seeing no one in Las Vegas, AVH, we're back to you if there's anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral on SB 313.
Thank you, Chair. We have no callers in neutral of SB 313.
Thank you. And any final remarks have been waived, so I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 313. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Public comment is not an opportunity to rehear testimony on a bill, and we ask that you please keep your public comment to topics within the jurisdiction of the committee. As a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or telephonically and may submit public comment up to 24 hours after the hearing or the meeting. Instructions to provide public comment telephonically today, you can dial 888-475-4499. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 83918410747 7, and then press pound when prompted for participant ID. Each person will have up to 2 minutes to provide testimony, and please remember to clearly state and spell your name for the record. Is there any public comment here in Carson City today? Seeing none, we will move on to Las Vegas, which I see no one in Las Vegas, so we will move on to AVH. Is there anyone on the line to provide public comment today?
The line is open and working. We have no callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, May 7th at 8 a.m. in room 4100. That concludes our meeting for today. The meeting is adjourned.